All right, so here we are on the left angle cross of the men's 5-1 profile. The men's are such a pressure cross. If you're going to start off with all this root pressure, you need space. The heretic demands forms to control the forms. In other words, one of the things that you get when you get to the left angle is that the left angle looks at the right angle and it says all the collective pattern stuff is fine. But what about enforcement? It's really nice that you can write a good law, but who's going to sterilize all these kids? You think that their parents are going to do it voluntarily with kitchen knives? Who's going to do this? So the left angle says we need to be in control of these fragile beings. This is where the collective service is becoming a collective demand. In other words, it's so good for you, you have to do it. It's so good for everybody that you have to do it. James Boyce, I'm so glad he's dead because he could not tolerate being in Dublin today. They come out 2 packs a day. You can't get into a pub there and have a cigarette. It's against the law. Oh, what a collective law. Now the collective law may come out of the right angle, but I guarantee you, it's all left angle, son of a bitch, walking in the door and saying, hey, you're not allowed to do that. The law says that you're not allowed to do that. The heresy is dead. I told you. The right angle collective. Once it accepts the pattern, it doesn't want to be reminded anymore. It will just keep following the pattern. It tells you something about the collective. So it's not good at enforcement. It isn't. It's like all the wonderful laws that have been enacted in Western countries to protect the environment. They're great laws, many of them. It's like the Kyoto Treaty. Great law, great collective law. Wonderful. Thank you very much. However, let's talk about implementation and then have a totally different story. It's my impression. Somebody asked me, they were thinking of moving to LA, and I said, my experience of LA. You get up in the morning, you breathe in a few times, you put Scotch tape on your tongue, and you pull off the particles. The laws are great, the laws are really good, but the one thing about program understands about the collective is that the collective will not focus on enforcement. So you need the cross of the mens, and you need these heretics who are going to stand up and they're going to enforce laws. One of the things you discover about collective laws is that people will vote for things they actually really don't like. So they vote for higher taxes to pay for the school, and then they get the tax bill, and then they're pissed. So it has to be the enforcers of this or what you get. So obviously, if you have a little enforcer, you know right away that the paranoia is perfect. Here's a 5-1 paranoia that's really perfect. But you got to remember these are kids. They get into a lot of trouble in school because their natural tendency is to tattle. Anyone who's not collective hates tattling. If you're tribal and somebody tells you and you and your friends and go kill them, if you're collective and somebody tattles you, you're full of shame and remorse. It's expected to be tattle on because it's shedding medium. If you're an individual and you're tattle on, how dare they, how dare you, little worm, you red. So it's one of the things about these children is that what you have to be clear with them is that they have to learn how to discern when it's really necessary for them to tell. If you see that your friend is about to stick a knife into somebody, it's a good idea. If you're there practicing shooting, you might want to say something. But again, these children have problems with it. In other words, because it's a five and because it's a spokesperson for all this, these are children that can be very left outside from the general flow of others. They can really feel left outside because they're not trusted. They're not trusted because these are the ones that really uphold the collective law. And interestingly enough, the rooting of that is a non-collective logical gate, and that's the 21. The 21 says, we understand that we're going to be good hunters. We cannot be running after these animals. We won't have enough to eat. It's the 5-1 on the cross that points out to you that you're not dressed correctly when you enter a restaurant. Excuse me, did you just see that man who just came into the door, your customer in a restaurant, and you call the maître d' over to, did you see the man come in here? He's not wearing a tie. These are the kids that the teacher always chooses to the monitor. You make sure everybody does precisely what they're supposed to do, and you tell me afterwards. Yes, I will. 5-2. The 5-2 is one of these curmudgeons. I don't know if there's any translation for that. Grumpy, bitchy, pissed off kind of person. A snarler. You finally get into this space. You have to be very lucky. When you're knocking on their door, either they're looking at the monitor because they have a camera, which in these days a lot of them will have them and they look and they think what they want. What they want from them is that they want anything. I don't know. Maybe I should have anything to do with it. Maybe I don't answer and they'll go away. And at some point, maybe I'll let them in. And then they come in. And then the moment they come into the environment, the moment the conversation starts, you can hear the 5-2. I don't like that world out there. Nobody does what they're supposed to be doing anymore. Nobody pays attention to the law. Look at that graffiti on the front of the house. Nobody has any respect anymore. Nobody, blah, blah, blah. And they go on and on and on. And what you're going to lay is even every collective rule that they notice that people don't obey. Come over here, look at the window, look at this light over here. They're not waiting at the light. Look at the woman with the child walking across the street and the light is red. She should be arrested for jaywalking. If you really get them and they're really nasty, they will talk about elimination. We have to exterminate the bastards. The hell with them. They're never going to be part of the community. They're never going to do anything for the world. Last time they did anything was 10,000 years ago. Nice people. Fortunately, only a few get to hear those delightful insights on the nature of the world, and yet so that I'm at least a touch fair to them. They often can be very inspiring in being able to the pattern that results from a law not being paid attention to, and whether in fact that creates a positive or that creates a negative. Certain things only are brought to the consciousness the moment somebody tries to make them a law. We know that in a Western society, that when changes are taking place in constitution and things like that, that what brings up is people are trying to see what the consequences are going to be both ways. Five twos are very good at that. They have very, very deep insights into the way in which the pattern is working because it's not working. In other words, that every pattern has an anti-pattern. And this is what you can find in the 5-2. The 5-1 strives of the anti-pattern because that gives it its hierarchy. It says, look, here's the pattern, you're not obeying the pattern. If you don't obey the pattern, you're going to be burned at the stake. This is the 5 transference of this cross. You'll be burned at the stake if you don't obey the pattern. And I will be burned at the stake, and I don't tell you because I'm not worthy if I don't tell you. When you get to the 5-2, you get this ability to be able to see that the ethnic pattern may be positive. There are 600,000 Americans that are serving time for smoking or selling marijuana. Ultimately, perhaps, if there's enough 5-2s that see the anti pattern, they realize that this is seriously not productive considering that it costs 25,000 a year to keep a human being incarcerated in the United States. If you add up 25,000 times 600,000, you will see that the taxpayers of the United States are being deeply burdened. Now, this is a heretical anti-pattern insight. In other words, this is the value of the 5-2 and its kind of configuration. They're very handy, these 5-2s, always seeing the anti-pattern in things.